Hello, my name is Ravi Chandra. I'm a psychiatrist and writer in San Francisco, California. I'm out here on the streets on a very warm evening and hope everyone's enjoying their day. And here I am out here wearing my We Persist t-shirt. Yes, I do get involved in politics as a citizen. And, it's all right when my preferred candidate at a given time didn't make it. That's okay. That's how the system works. I've been posting some videos about violent rhetoric being offered by candidates who are upset when they don't get their way, or they perceive that there's going to be a bad outcome to their intermediate term journey. I just think it's pretty horrible to threaten violence when you don't get your way. That's just my opinion as a doctor and as a person. I honestly don't even know any 2-year-olds who do the same thing. But I don't have any children myself. But maybe other parents can chime in with stories about when their kids might have said something pretty outrageous. There should be a nuclear war if I don't get my dinner on time or something like that. I'm sure that we all might say things in the heat of the moment that we don't really mean, but the problem is that whatever distress these leaders are feeling is not filtered. I mean, I don't know if they're getting kind of help for the distress that they're feeling or what, but certainly when they're talking in a public forum, I'm just not sure why they would be spouting violent rhetoric. As I said, we're all capable of making mistakes and saying things which we feel abashed about or ashamed about at some point or another. And I have a little meme called Murderous Urge Impulses. And it's based on this mindfulness technique called urge surfing. And I call it Murderous Urge Surfing. And so it's like, oh, well, that urge to really strangle someone or whatever, that might come up. I mean, that comes up for a lot of people. I think that's pretty normal, but we don't act on it. I mean, that's something that's very distressing, and it can cause a lot of internal conflict as well, especially if you're typically a very peaceful person. I mean, it might take a lot to push someone to the edge of even having such a thought. But to actually speak it as a leader, I think, potentially disqualifies you from the highest office in the land, certainly. Think about the distresses that people on the ground are facing. I mean, we're losing 100,000 people a year to the opioid epidemic. And I personally think that maybe part of the reason is because we have this schism in the country and people can't really talk about their distress. They feel ashamed. They turn to drugs and other substances or other addictions instead of finding the real kind of balm and solace, which is love and compassion, being connected to our fellow men and women and people of all genders. So being connected, belonging, really is the way to soothe the distresses, particularly of addiction. And I think disconnection is at the root of all suffering. And we're all terribly disconnected and alienated in society right now, in American society. Some level of alienation, I think, exists for just about everyone. If you're not feeling alienated, boy, please talk to me, because I want to know how you manage it, because there's a lot of distresses for anyone who cares or who thinks or feels about the country as deeply as so many Americans really do. And, I think we look to our leaders to help us manage the distresses that we see in our lives and in society in some way. But when those leaders can't manage distress themselves and instead spout violent rhetoric, what kind of example does this set for the rest of us? We just had a terrible shooting in Jacksonville. Yeah, and that hit. It's just like, I feel personally like it's got to be connected to the ecosystem of rhetoric that these leaders are pushing people's buttons, and I mean, we should be talking about how to connect with African Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, Native Americans, American Indians, LGBTQ, trans people. We should be talking about how to connect to everyone and how to live with each other, not to think of each other as enemies. That's the problem. I mean, enemies are not individuals. Enemies are hatred, right? And that if we all have to contend with love and hate, right? As human beings, that's kind of essential. I mean, things when we're attached to people, when we're close to people, we can sometimes get intense feelings of both love and sometimes hatred as well. That can come up. It's kind of the sparks and the fires of attachment, as I call it. I mean, this is all coming out of that wonderful process of human relationship and relating. And when we don't understand the other person, that's when we get really distressed and alienated from them and from our conception of their identity. But I think it's best to listen to them and how they manage their own identities, particularly people who are marginalized and vulnerable. How do they manage their identities and deal with all the inputs that come in, the degradations, the devaluations, the deprivations, the humiliations, the shame, the anguish, the agonies, etc., and find joy as well, because that is like a miracle of resilience and human growth. I mean, even the story of, I've heard stories of gay people who have been kicked out of their houses by their parents who did not understand them for religious reasons or perhaps other reasons as well. But they eventually can make a connection back with those children and express their love and be together as a family again. That is some of the most remarkable and beautiful miracles of belonging that I've heard about myself. And you should find a film, watch it. I've written about some of those films on my blog, Memoirs of a Superfan, at eastwindezine.com. I'll do that shout out and plug for my own writing. And I think we all have so much to learn from each other. And when we start hating, we stop learning. So thank you for listening to this very long message, and I wish you well tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.